And Mayor de Blasio is on the defensive following a 47-page report by the Department of Investigations, which accuses him of misusing his NYPD security detail. The mayor remaining defiant over the charges, saying he's not taking the report at face value.
DOI chose not to ask the very people who were in charge why decisions were made, why things were done to protect me, my family, and others they protect. To me, that omission is just plain unprofessional and unfair and inaccurate. It does a disservice to the people of this city.
This morning, the Manhattan DA looking into whether or not the head of Mayor de Blasio's security detail was trying to obstruct justice by hampering that probe. This morning, we're joined by the Commissioner of the Department of Investigation behind this report, Margaret Garnett, who put together that report. So good morning to you, Commissioner. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me on.
So let's talk about this, because you just heard the mayor right there, right? You were appointed to this position by the mayor, who at one time praised your work. Now he's calling the report inaccurate, misleading, unprofessional. What is your response to that?
Well, you know, I think it really shows that a mayor who values independent and effective oversight would not be saying these things. And the fact that his response is to attack DOI and me personally, I think really speaks volumes. The things that he is saying are not accurate. The report accepts as a given for purposes of our investigation that it's the view of the Intelligence Bureau that the mayor's family needs full-time protection. Mm-hmm. But that's not what they have. And as the report makes very clear, anyone who reads it can see it makes very clear that we even say literally in the report that no reasonable person could dispute that the mayor of New York City requires security protection.
Right,
and the only question as to the mayor personally that we raise in the report is who is responsible for paying for the use of his security detail on his presidential campaign.
Yeah, let's talk about that. One of the main findings of this report is the $320,000 of city taxpayer dollars that went to protecting the mayor while he was campaigning for president. But he's appealing those findings with the conflict of interest board. So is there any merit to that appeal?
Well, I won't opine on the merits of the appeal, but what I do know is that the mayor was told, he asked for guidance, and he was told in May of 2019 by the chose to go forward that his campaign would be responsible for the travel costs of his detail on campaign trips. And he went forward and incurred the expenses, did not pay them back. And now, only in July of 2021, in the midst of our investigation, 5 days before he and his wife were interviewed, he had his city hall lawyer submit a letter to the Conflicts of Interest Board with arguments about why he shouldn't, in fact, have to pay that money.
So let me ask you this, because the bulk of the report, while we wait on that appeal process on that, was also about how the security detail was used, right? How it pertains to the mayor's children in particular, showing that security was dispatched to help Kiara de Blasio, his daughter, move from Brooklyn to Gracie Mansion, to drive Dante, his son, back and forth from Yale when he was a student. How much did that cost city taxpayer dollars, and was that appropriate, given the fact the mayor is saying, look, my family has protection, I'm first and foremost a father, and I want to make sure that they are safe?
So we didn't calculate the cost of those things. In part, it would have been impossible to do so because NYPD maintained no records whatsoever about the use of the detail for the mayor's children. None. There's not one piece of paper that reflects what the NYPD spent on the mayor's children.
Okay.
Yep. The Deputy Commissioner of Intelligence and Counterterrorism, John Miller, defended the use of security detail for de Blasio's children by breaking down the threats against the family. But there were more than 300 credible threats made against Mayor de Blasio, and 11 of them, we're told, were aimed at his children. And he says it's better to err on the side of caution. Let's take a listen.
The children of the mayor are designated protectees, and we will provide them whatever protection we can, when we can, if they accept it. And that includes riding in cars with a detective, as opposed to sending them off on the subway or on the bus or walking through the street as recognizable figures.
So you're hearing John Miller right there. So isn't that a valid reason for that security then, considering the apparent threats against this family?
So there's no question that the NYPD has threats against the de Blasio family, and that those threats, according to the Intelligence Bureau, might merit protection. But the de Blasio children declined to, they had a security detail of their own. When they became adults, they declined it. They said they didn't want it anymore. And so what they have in practice now is not related to, is not determined by security needs. It's determined solely by their preference. And as we lay out in the report, that is contrary to the practices of every federal agency whose job it is to provide dignitary protection. It's not the appropriate way to do it. There's not one piece of paper at the police department that documents what the threats are, the analysis, any determination of the security that is matched to what the situation is.
We're out of time here, but I do have to ask you, because the mayor says that you just did not speak to the NYPD about this issue that involved the NYPD, right? And now there's this whole idea regarding the top inspector for the NYPD's detail that he tried to destroy his phone. Did you speak to the NYPD about this?
Yes.
And what did you find in terms of the obstruction when it came to that individual's cell phone?
So the inspector who's in charge of the mayor's detail and City Hall and Gracie Mansion for months refused to provide his City Hall issued phone to lawyers to produce to DOI. He then later tried to destroy his NYPD issued phone when he was told it would have to be surrendered to DOI. And before he surrendered those phones, deleted all of the contents on both his City Hall and NYPD issued phones.
So when the mayor says you didn't speak to the NYPD, is he just misunderstanding?
I'm not sure why he would say that. It is true that we didn't interview John Miller because, as I've said, up to now, like, unless John Miller is going to tell me that there's documentation that does exist and that we were told that it didn't by NYPD's lawyers, or describe that the facts on the ground for the children are not what's happening, which is not what they're saying, then I don't see that what he has to add. We are taking at face value, in good faith, their belief about security for the children.
Understood. Commissioner Garnett, thank you so much for making the time this morning, and we'll see how all this plays out. You're welcome back anytime. Thank you.
Oh, great. Thank you so much.
Have a good Friday.